Guys, just like General Grievous said in episode 3, if now's the time to abandon ship, now's the time to abandon ship. So, fair
100%.
warning to all those about to hear. So, if you want to stick around, stick around. If it's too much for you to deal with, hey, no shame in abandoning ship.
No
Now's the
shame.
time.
All right. Hey, everybody, welcome back to a special episode of Nerd at Heart. Today, we're going to talk about murder
And go.
and Valentine's.
Woohoo!
Hey! So, today with me is, of course, my co host.
Patrick, as always, great to be here, guys. Great to see you here.
And we're welcoming back Ariel Cooksey, host of Malice, the True Crimes podcast. Welcome back, Ariel.
Hey, happy to be back, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you back. And so, why are we here today? What is happening around this time that brings us all together?
Oh, love is a many-splendored thing. Love lifts us up where we belong. All we need is love, right?
Da, 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 da.
But sometimes, love doesn't go quite the way we hope it would. It's so every year for Malice, I'm about to reboot. Actually, I've been on hiatus, but I'm about to reboot. February is my favorite month. Most people would think it'd be October, right? For Halloween. It's not. No, my favorite month is February, where I get to do a whole month of love gone wrong.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you mean by love gone wrong?
Oh, there are so many ways. But basically, there are so many examples that every year, like for instance, I'll give you, this last year, you know what? We're going to put a pin in that and I'm going to explain something real quick.
Right.
I'm not scared of Big Brother. I'm not. Because my Google search history is horrific. Okay. And in fact, this last year, I had to research what the incest laws were for every state in terms of having children and marriage and all of that. Yeah, so it involved that. But I've also had cases that I've covered that have involved a male-female serial killer couple. I had a case in which a man and his wife, he was a bit on the sadistic side, and she was like, hey, I don't like this, and but also I want kids, like whatever, like you do. And he was like, cool,
He gets to
we
kill
can come
people
to.
and she gets children.
Interestingly, he didn't kill anybody. Okay, maybe allegedly, but he didn't kill anybody in this particular story. But what they came to a compromise, and marriage is all about compromise. Y'all know this. You're both married, right? Compromise. So he was like, "Okay, babe, I love you so much. I'll give you a baby, right? If we can bring home a sex slave." And she was like, cool. Yeah, sure. Why not? So they found this poor woman, and by woman, I mean she was like 17 at the time, who was hitchhiking to visit her dad in California. And they, a husband and wife, picked her up. It'd make you feel safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, she ended up with her head in a wooden box. Yeah, after he had held a knife to her throat and told her not to move. So she ended up with her head in a box. And then she ended up being put into essentially a coffin underneath their bed. He had constructed it, but it was just a wooden box that she was in for about 23 hours a day. She had a plate in case she needed to urinate or anything else. And then he would pull her out and do what he wanted to with her. And then, eventually she sort of earned some freedom, but this is over the course of 7 years. Yeah.
Long time.
Yes.
17 when she went in, 7 years later.
Right.
So she's 24, 25, depending.
Yes, right. And over time, like I said, he had her so well-trained, I guess would be the right term, for lack
Okay.
of better wording. He would let her go outside and like work in the garden, and she would help take care of their children, and she helped birth their children. Um, but eventually he had a barn on the property, and he started digging out a pit because he wanted more sex slaves, and he was just going to start collecting women to put in his pit. And at that point in time, his wife was like, no, I'm not crazy about that. And so she actually let this girl, Colleen Hoover, go, put her on a bus, sent her back to her family. She went to the police immediately after that and told them what happened, but she got an immunity deal before she told them the whole story. And they looked into it. They're still trying, because there were women and girls who ended up disappearing, and some who were found murdered that they think that he's responsible for. He has all the hallmarks of a serial killer, but as of this point, it is only alleged. So, testimony of his ex-wife, who did finally leave him. But people look at it and they go, well, why did his wife stay with him? Like, Colleen was kept in a box. So if this dude's going to let you out of said box and like feed you and stuff, you're probably going to mind your P's and Q's. But what about his wife? He was an older gentleman who found her when she was 15.
Okay.
She never had a boyfriend before. And he was handsome, and he was tall, and he was charismatic, and when he introduced her to sex, it was violent, but she just assumed that's the way it was. She didn't know better. And so she was sort of groomed into this situation. It wasn't until she formed a bond with Colleen, and they started reading the Bible together, and they started he wanted to take Colleen as his second wife. And Janet, his wife, was not crazy about that either. But she was like, you know what, if that's what he wants, whatever, I don't know any different. At this point in time, I have 2 kids with this man. Like, what am I going to do? But she formed a bond with Colleen. And then when she saw that these women were going to be put in a pit, she was like, enough's enough. Ultimately, I consider her a victim.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, 15. And, I mean, she was obviously groomed. She was obviously taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
And I mean, at 15 as well, she's not going to know right from wrong.
I remember being 15, and I was, nope.
Ariel's like, I didn't know at 15.
Exactly. Not a dang thing. No.
All right.
So that's one case. But, I also mentioned serial killer couple. We have one of the ones that I covered for Love Gone Wrong was Deadly Beautiful is what I called the series.
Okay.
And it was about Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka, who were Canadian serial killers.
Okay.
And
very polite.
Very.
Sorry.
Sorry. Okay.
Hey, look, now you're just gonna have to lay down there.
All right, fellas, I'm gonna tell you all about it. So, Paul Bernardo, before he met Carla, right?
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing about a booty.
A boot. I'm gonna tell you about it. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, so.
Hey, now you get over here and you come back, and I'm going to get you, you hoser.
You hoser. Exactly right. So, Paul Bernardo
was to the Canadian people, but I'm sure the Canadian serial killer couple will be something.
Yes. So, Paul Bernardo was a very handsome, very charismatic, intelligent guy, right? Who also happened to be known as the Scarborough Rapist. He would abduct women and girls, we're teens, but you get it, from bus stops. And he would commit his sexual offenses against them and then let them go. So then he meets Carla Homolka, who basically is like blonde bombshell, real young, right? But beautiful, this little petite thing. And she was one of those girls that's like, what I want, I get. We've all known the type, right?
Yeah.
Well, she meets Paul Bernardo, And the first night they meet, they end up hooking up in the bathroom. Like, it was instant. They were into each other. All right. So you've got this handsome, charismatic guy who's in business and he's making good money. And then you've got young, pretty Carla who is like, I like all the nice things. They hook up. They're into each other. But Paul had a hang up about Carla. And that's that she wasn't a virgin. That was a problem. Now, they were immediately like into each other. Like they were all about it. He proposes. They're planning their wedding. He comes over and spends Christmas with her and her family. Family all goes to bed. Carla and Paul end up staying up and they're drinking, having a good time with Carla's little sister, who's 16 and a virgin. So for Christmas that year, you know how you try to find the perfect present for that person you love? She made it her sister for him.
Yeah, I got my wife a book.
Right. So Carla was like, well, since I'm not a virgin, I want to give you virginity for Christmas. So what we're going to do is Carla worked at a vet clinic. So she took medication they would use to sedate dogs. Haldol drugged her own sister after getting her drunk. Here's the problem. Haldol can easily be overdosed. When they realized she was non-responsive, she started vomiting and stuff. But she and Paul both participated in doing what they did to her. I'm just going to say that. The intention was not to kill her, that we're aware of, unless that was Carla's intention, because she knew her way around the medication. Right? Yeah. So, but let's say, for argument's sake, that wasn't the intention. It happened. She ended up overdosing on Haldol. She had chemical burns all over her face from the vomit. They ended up having to bury her, and they were like, it's a tragic mistake. Like, nobody knew that Haldol was involved at all. This didn't come out until way later. So Carla and Paul move in together. He decides that he wants to take his own sex slave. They abduct a girl, video record it with both Carla and Paul sexually abusing this child. Just real quickly, when is this taking place? What era? It's the 80s. The 80s. Oh. Yeah. And this little girl, her name was Leslie French. And Leslie Mahaffey. I'm sorry, I'm getting two of the victims' names confused. I feel terrible about that. I'm so sorry. Leslie Mahaffey. She came home one evening. And she was after curfew. Now, her parents, and this is one of the saddest things I've ever heard, her parents were like, you can't keep coming home late. You do it again, we're locking you out. And you're just stuck. So this particular night, she got home past curfew. Door was locked. She couldn't get into her house. But Paul Bernardo was stealing parts of a car next door. And she saw him smoking and went over and asked for a cigarette. He gave her a cigarette. And before you know it, bing, bang, boom, he has her by the throat with a knife. Gets in his car, brings her home, and is like, hey, babe, guess what I got? One would think his, betrothed, his future wife, right, would be like, the hell? No. She was just like, all right, let's see, why not? Let's have at. So they both participate in disabusing this child. They end up, Carla basically says, you realize we can't let her go, right? Because her blindfold slipped. And she saw you in person when you were doing that with the car. We can't leave the living witness. So she's killed. It's debatable. Carla and Paul have different stories. Both are liars, so who knows? Basically strangled to death, hanged to death, more or less. And they dismembered her body, put her in the basement. Carla's family came over for Easter dinner, like you do. And then they left. And then they put her body parts in concrete and then threw them in the water. Shortly thereafter, Carla and Paul got married. Yeah, it was cute. Oh, they were referred to as Ken and Barbie, which is where they got the moniker, the Ken and Barbie Killers. The day they got married, the concrete pieces with Leslie Mahafy's body parts surfaced. And police found them. So they were pulling those out of the water as these two are making their marital vow. Yes. So without going into too much further detail, basically there were 2 additional victims, okay, that died. There were other victims, but there were 2 additional victims who died. Their last was a girl named Kristen French.
Okay.
And she was a 15-year-old. She was just a schoolgirl. They asked her for directions in a parking lot of a church. And they abducted her and took her home and did what they did. Now, Paul was not kind to Carla. He did beat her multiple times. So this was a very, she went to the police and basically said, he beat me into submission. He forced me to do these things. He was cruel. He was horrible.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm bruised all over. And so she got an immunity deal to give it up on him.
Okay.
Which, of course, being a psychopath, she did. She was like, I don't really love you. You're an asshole. So here we go. Sorry, there's my one. PG-13. PG-13. I said it. I used the A word. Okay. So Paul gets dragged in. They find out, oh my gosh, he is the Scarborough rapist. But Carla's like, wait, there's more. Billy Mays did, like all day long. Just like, oh, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
So she tells them about the murders. Again, immunity, right? So he goes to trial. She's the star witness against him. He gets sent away 25 to life, which in Canada, every 2 years, he has the possibility for parole after 25 years. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
God bless. In Paul's trial, is that, remember I told you there were videotapes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. His lawyer hid them. So they never saw the light of day during the trial. But when they found the videotapes, and Carla did have to do 12 years for accessory, but that's it. She couldn't have been brought up on murder charges, nothing, right? So she had 12 years. That was her sentence. When they watched those videos, it was evident that Carla was potentially the one calling the shots on the abuse and murder. She's free. She's changed her name. She has 3 kids and is married. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So yeah, Paul Bernardo will probably never see the outside of prison walls again. But Carla Homolka, who may have been the person pulling the strings, and absolutely took place because it's on video, her abusing these girls as well. Yeah, she's just out and about.
Woof.
And feels as if she's a victim because people keep looking for her. Okay. All right. Psychopath gonna psychopath. I don't know what to tell you. So people wonder, though, let's say, for argument's sake, that Carla Homolka was battered into her participation, right? Forced into it. Why was she attracted to Paul to begin with? Why did she allow him? Why did she invite him to do what he did to her own sister? Why? Right? Yeah. That was like, wait, what? What? Think about like the Night Stalker or, Richard Ramirez or Charles Manson. Where are these groupies coming from? They're getting married in prison. Like, these are freaky dudes. What's the appeal? Well, there's actually a condition called hybristophilia, right? So we know philias, right, are love of, yes? So like pedophile, love of children. Sure it is. So anyway, hybristophilia is basically the sexual attraction or arousal by people who are known criminals or known for violent behavior. And it's a whole phenomenon. I get into it on my show. I do a special on it for my Patreon. But yeah, there are actually people who find that compelling, and a lot of times, and I don't mean to sound trite or, but daddy issues happens a lot. Like, I'm looking for the approval of somebody who isn't forthcoming with that approval.
Okay.
So when we see violent psychopaths, they're probably not the most reassuring, nurturing people to their partners. But their partners are like, well, daddy withheld, so this guy withheld. If I can win his approval, I've really got something, right? It's very pathological, but a fascinating phenomenon, really.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, what can you really say after you hear like love stories like that? Is there hope? Will it go on? You know?
Dating after 40 doesn't seem so scary now, does it?
No, not really.
You know,
I mean,
Leslie Jones, just on behalf of Valentine's Day, was speaking with Drew Barrymore, and they were talking about dating after 40.
uh-huh.
And Leslie said, you know what they need to do is just make an app, like with all the dating apps, just put them all together and call it What's Left.
What's left?
And I kid you not, Drew Barrymore was in the middle of drinking it, and there was like a beat as she's drinking her coffee, and then just goes and just spit it all over the stage, and it was just priceless.
Leslie Jones is really funny. I like
She's
her.
the best. I love her.
She's really good.
Yes. What's left?
Well, you know, hopefully not what you've been talking about already with
Right.
with lovely, wonderful, nurturing people
Yes.
out there like
And
that.
y'all,
You know, what's the worry about?
I know it sounds terrifying, but the one thing we do have going for us, it is mercifully rare. Very rare.
Yeah.
So.
Well, unless you watch the show Criminal Minds, then it's like I had to stop watching that one because at one point it's like, there's so many people out here serial killers. What is going on?
I mean, the numbers are unsure.
Yeah.
At any given time, the range is between 25, like active in the U.S. at any given time, 25 to 50, 250 worldwide. So, you know, I mean, the chances that you will encounter a serial killer, slim to none. Slim to none. But, you know, if I ever do, I want you guys to know, if I become a victim of a serial killer, just know I died doing what I love, which is learning too much about serial killers.
Well, I hope you never get what you want.
Same.
Scary.
That's what you call putting a positive spin on it, you know. Hey, I got to learn.
Look, I'm a silver linings kind of girl. I'm a silver linings kind of girl.
That's the old quote I used to take from George Carlin. Don't forget, kid, inside every silver lining is a black cloud. You know?
Oh.
This is true. But yeah, it's just to harken back to the nerdrum bit. Like, I know I talk about really, really dark things. It truly. And I spend a lot of time with them, and people a lot of times are really surprised when they get to know me in real life that I'm not super intense and super morose and super sad and a downer. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it though from, you know, a compartmentalized view. You know, like I'm not a clinician, but when people go in and they treat people like psychiatry or even, you know, detectives, they can't take that home with them every day. They have to be able to say, okay, here is the thing. This is horrifying, and I'm putting it on the shelf, and I'll get back to that tomorrow.
You know, and you're not wrong. I mean, there's a lot of different fandoms that people do that with. I mean, like, there are people who are fans of the Joker from DC, and he's done a lot of messed up stuff.
Absolutely.
There are people, from what is it, the Warhammer community, and that whole universe is completely off the rails in sadistic, masochist things. I mean, even, you know, in Star Wars, like, we hear about slavery as a thing. Like, we hear about, you know, and I mean, just in our own history, we know, what are they doing with the slaves? What do you think they're doing with the slaves?
Right.
You know, I mean,
it's dark. There's dark
a lot of
stuff.
dark things, no matter which nerddom you're a part of.
Absolutely.
And this is just a different nerddom, and you know, it just has
Well,
You know,
it's an outlet, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of an outlet so that these kind of
absolutely.
things don't intrude on your normal life. I mean, I teach,
Right.
so that's that's how I get my darkness out.
I did. You had mentioned earlier, Adrian. You brought up Susan Smith.
Yeah.
Tell me what you were wanting to kind of dive in about that particular
Oh no,
case.
well, I
'Cause
mean,
talk about love gone wrong. Woo.
yeah, exactly. I mean, because we are in South Carolina, and that's where this
Mhm.
all happened. And this was back in the '90s. Actually, I still remember very much, kind of talking to my mom. So Susan Smith had two children,
Yes,
and she
two little
basically,
boys.
yeah, and I remember that she had, kind of come away, called the police, was scared, and mentioning that somebody jacked the car,
Right.
took it from her, she was claiming, I believe it was an African American male,
yeah.
is what
Of
she
course
was,
she did.
yeah.
Of course she did.
Um,
Yeah.
but the thing is, then they find the kids a few days later, unfortunately, in the car in a pond,
Right.
or yeah,
Still in their seatbelts. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and it turns out that basically, long story short, Susan Smith was convicted of the murder because she was wanting to, I guess, date a guy or go out with a guy, and he did not want any prior attachments.
Wow.
You know,
That's the thing, is that she glommed onto that. If she didn't have kids, he'd be all about it. He was never all about it.
yeah,
She's somebody who suffers from histrionic personality disorder, and
mm,
histrionics, as we know, we're
yeah,
talking super dramatic and we're talking super self-absorbed. Like, everyone
yeah,
loves me. Everyone loves me. I'm the best. So she's looking at it. She's like, he doesn't want me. Well, it can't be me that's the
yeah,
problem. So if he
Yeah,
doesn't want
it's the
kids,
kids.
his excuse was, I don't want kids. He didn't want to hurt
yeah,
her feelings, y'all. I mean, that is what it is. Like, how people are like, well, I don't
yeah,
date coworkers, right? When really it's like, I don't want to be with you. Like, that's not, I'm not, so
yeah,
people come up with excuses to ease the hurt,
Yeah, the
right?
rejection. The rejection.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So he's rejecting her, but he's saying, I just don't want kids, and you have kids, and that's too bad, right? And she's
It's
like, oh,
not
that's a problem. No, I
you.
can get
It's
rid of it.
not
yeah,
me. It's the kids.
It's the kids. Yeah. So Susan, in her infinite wisdom, was like, right, the kids. Well, I can fix that.
Oh.
So she did. She gunned her car. Now, she claims that she planned to commit suicide. She was
mm,
going to be murder
Yeah.
suicide. She was
And
going
then
to kill
she
herself.
jumped
yeah.
out of the last
And then
second.
she just bailed because survival
Thank God I
instincts.
saved myself.
100%, yes. So this dude is still like, still don't want you. And she's like, okay. So what's interesting is that you brought up this case, right?
Mm,
And I have an interview coming up for a brand new podcast that I'm coming out with, which is called Hellcat. And Hellcat is also a true crime podcast, but is specifically about female offenders. And this particular case, I happen to have an interview lined up with Susan Smith's cellie, an individual I know. Her cellmate is this person's cousin.
Oh.
okay.
Yeah, so and this person was in prison for murder too.
So
But
so
she,
when are you
But
debuting?
nice murder.
Yeah.
we're looking at potentially, hopefully, February of this year. Yeah,
Okay.
so hopefully this month. Yeah.
So guys, you heard it here first.
Mm-hmm.
Nerd at Heart. New podcast coming.
Yeah.
Hellcat.
Hellcat. Yep.
And again, by Miss Ariel Cooksey. I tune into it, especially if, hey, this is what you're nerdy about.
And I would definitely do it because this Susan Smith case, I remember when
It's
it was
big.
it was national
Oh yeah,
back in the early
huge.
90s.
I
In the early 90s.
remember growing up and hearing about it, and my mom
Mhm.
told me about it, and she was like,
Yeah.
actually, I think she lived in a neighborhood near here.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because my
Dang.
mom we were driving by, and she was like, "That's the house of the woman that killed her kids, did them in the pond, and
That's
and
wild.
they died." Yeah, and
well, and she just came up for a parole hearing.
Yes.
I think her first one, and and then of course they said no.
Of course not.
Denied.
Denied.
Sorry, babe. Nice try.
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
I will say there's a special place in the nether worlds for people who do that to their children. So Susan's not gonna get out. She's not getting out. It's not
especially not in South Carolina. I mean they don't. Yeah, they don't treat that stuff nicely.
Yeah, no, I think she was lucky enough to escape the death penalty. So.
Yep. Yes. 100%. 100%.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, no. But that was a crazy one, and it was just
truly.
That was the early 90s and all the craziness we got up to and had to watch.
Y'all, just as a little piece, since we're talking about love and Valentine's Day, don't get rid of your kids for a man. I'm just throwing it out there, just from me to you.
I'll try to do that.
Wasn't common sense before. It's the sage advice of Miss Ariel today. If your guy says he'll put a ring on your finger, if you don't have kids, don't listen to him.
So
no.
This is where I have to ask. Not a man, but are we setting a price? Is it 2?
I'm just saying. And another thing.
Yeah, no, I never.
Don't have a baby to save a relationship. Doesn't work. Never works. Don't do it. Don't do it. Especially if you're the side piece, and ladies, don't be the side piece. Don't ever be the side piece.
Well, wait a minute. How do you know if you're the side piece?
Well, if he married you, the side piece.
That'll do it.
So if you think, you know what? You know how I'm going to get him to choose me? I'm going to get pregnant. Don't do it. That does not fix things. In fact, that could be a recipe for murder. Just saying. Look, I'm just being real with you. I'm being real with you. I care.
Okay. See, I'm a big comedy nerd and all this. So anybody ever remember Jonathan Katz? Back in the day, it was Dr. Katz.
Yes.
Because he's a stand-up comedian. That was one of the stuff. And he said something, in his routine, it was like, I cheated on my wife. And I went to the rabbi and I said, Rabbi, I cheated on my wife. And the rabbi went, nothing's written in stone.
But this has been.
I love Dr. Katz.
This has been a great Valentine's Day episode. Thank you for coming on, Miss Ariel. And like I said, if you haven't checked out our podcast Malice before, go check it out. And again, like I said before, you heard it first here. New podcast and offshoot Hellcat coming hopefully in February.
Hopefully.
So we're looking forward to it. Fingers crossed. But hey, if it's anything like Malice, it's going to be great too.
Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I cannot wait. Since we have been brainstorming, can we tell everybody? I'm going to have y'all on Malice.
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I'm excited.
We can go ruin another show.
Yeah!
Are you interested in 2 portly nerds coming on your show? Well, get ready because they are coming.
It's going to be amazing. I'm excited.
All right.
Well, it's been great to have you here.
So much. Yeah,
thank you.
All right, everybody, check it out. And we love you guys. See you later. Bye.
Later.
All right.